what's going on, latest, developments in this war, or somehow escalations, let's put it this way, in this war that is happening. We've learned that the Chinese satellite imagery from, one of their satellites, that show how the US military aircraft at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia was targeted by Iranians. It's E-3C AWACS.
Yeah,
and
expensive little
and
piece of equipment.
the other one is E-11A planes, alongside, together with refueling F-16s and refueling aircrafts. From what you've seen so far, it seems that Iran, despite having these sort of lot of hitting, the United States together with Israel is hitting the energy infrastructure in Iran. But they're keeping their focus mostly on the targets that are related to the military operation of the United States. What is your understanding the way that Iran is continuing with this fight?
Oh, no. Iran is servicing. When I say servicing, that's a euphemism for destroying. Iran is servicing Western industry in the Middle East or in the Persian Gulf quite effectively too. It's just that President Win Bigly, aka Trump, because he win bigly, as he puts down, I win bigly. It's so much for grammar. That's what I'm calling him now, President Win Bigly. He has destroyed Iran for 29 days now. He's destroyed every day. He's destroyed Iran, but and Iran doesn't have anything left. But for some reason, Iran keeps shooting a lot of missiles, drones, and everything else being destroyed. I guess they rebuild them at night. But the point is Iran has enough assets to hit both military and industrial targets in parallel. For example, two Iranian steel plants have been hit by the Israelis. Iran returned the favor, hitting the Israeli plant and 5 other plants in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Qatar, in UAE, in Saudi Arabia. They somehow still have quite a few missiles to go. So Iran has a giant reserve of missiles, and they're still producing missiles and drones. And you see the videos that are coming out of Tel Aviv and other places. Missiles still are coming in, and considering the people that let those videos through, they're facing up to I think 15 years in prison from the Israeli government if they're caught. So they're really, those videos that get posted, those people are posting at a grave personal risk to their own freedom. So that's not just people posting. I mean, that's a serious risk that they're taking on themselves. And we see that there are bigger and bigger demonstrations starting in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv and other cities against the Israeli government by Israelis, by anti-Zionist Jews, and by others who don't want this over. They're still a minority. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're still less than 20%, but they're growing, which is a good sign. But in Kuwait, Kuwait's close enough to Iran that we've actually seen videos of Iranian drones, FPV drones with really big battery packs, flying around looking for something to blow up. At this point, that's worth the effort. And there's nobody shooting at them. Nothing. The bases are just easy targets. And in Saudi Arabia at Prince Sultan, which was the question to begin with, I had it on very good intelligence, actually, not my person, but through a person directly from that base. 2 weeks ago, the Saudis told the U.S. military, "You're on your own. We ain't helping you. We're neutral. That's it. Survive the best you can." And those bases, interestingly enough, they don't have bunkers. They never built bunkers. They didn't think that any conflict would last that long, and they were very, very reliant on their anti-aircraft systems. They thought the anti-air would be able to handle anything. Well, those systems are either out of ammunition, out of interceptor missiles, or they've been destroyed. So that's how that goes. Well, the issue here is now that Iran has free rein on to destroy hit these bases. There's nothing there to stop them, and amazingly, I mean, I don't know how, but Iran keeps getting satellite imaging from of these bases. I know, like, Americans are. I think the Americans are the only satellites in space, right? Because they've forbidden. Trump has now forbidden any satellite imaging coming out of there at all for over the last month. So nobody sees the damage. But amazing, I guess it turns out there's more than one country that has satellites up. And they may have an axe to grind with the U.S., like, say, in Ukraine. I'm not saying that who's doing it, but apparently there's some people that would like to do proxy back. Let the viewer decide who I'm talking about. You have smart viewers. I think they get the point. So Iran has quite a bit of the fighting capability, and there's reports coming out that they've hit American the 82nd Airborne troops that are arrived in Kuwait. So they're not waiting to be invaded somewhere. They're taking the war directly to wherever the troops are. And Kuwait was complaining that they were being attacked by Iran, and these are guests of Kuwait. Well, if you're the Plotsdarm for the future invasion, don't be surprised you get hit. They're not, Iran is not Saddam Hussein, who sat there for 6 months, believing for some reason that he wasn't going to get attacked. Iran's already been attacked, and Iran is doing what Iran should be doing to defend itself.
What is your understanding of Zelensky going to these Arab states to help them? It's somehow amazing to see Zelensky going there, because the United States was there. The United States has everything in those countries, had everything in those countries. They couldn't do anything. And right now, Zelensky somehow is a superhero for these Arab states to help them. What is the capability of Ukraine when it comes to the help that they can give to these Arab states?
Well, there's two factors here at play. First of all, hi, remember me? Hi, I'm here. Hi. The little midget called Zelensky. Yeah, he's no longer being on the front page of everybody's news. Yeah. The coming famine, the arrived energy crisis in Europe, and there will be in the European Union, and there will be a famine, at least for the lower classes. By midsummer, prices will double, if not triple, for food items, because they're looking at having half the crop that they normally have, because it's already in the south of Europe. It's already planting season. North of Europe, the planting season is coming up in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, and there's no fertilizer. Yep. And without modern chemical fertilizers, the whole green revolution was built on that. You're looking at half the crop, if not more, if not less, especially in a lot of these areas. So there's going to be starvation. I'm not saying whole nations are going to starve, but the lower classes that are already having troubles feeding their families. I have a friend of mine, Lorenzo. He's a poli-sci professor in Italy, and he was telling me half a year ago that a lot of the poorer Italian families and the lower middle class Italian families, they have trouble feeding themselves and their families by week 4 of the month, because the money's out. And wait till the food prices skyrocket, because there's going to be a much smaller crop across the world, across a lot of different countries. So, Zelensky somehow dropped off the front page, and he needs to be back on the page. That's one, because he wants the attention, because how can you ask for money if you're not on the front page? And two, he really doesn't want to be inside Ukraine, especially if Russia finally decides, if the leadership in Russia finally decides to, let's get rid of him. So he really doesn't. He spends as little time inside Ukraine as possible the last 4 years. Zelensky has his tours of Europe and Asia and wherever else constantly. I don't think there's ever been a wartime ruler that spent as little time in his country as Zelensky has. I mean, it's the exception when he's home than when he's not. Having said that, how much can Zelensky help? He's out of ammunition interceptors inside Ukraine, except for certain areas, like center of Kiev. So most of Ukraine is now flyover country for anything that Russia has. I mean, look, the UAE, unless they were trying to do some kind of deception trick here, the UAE let the president of UAE, what's his name, Mohammed, it's MBZ, whatever.
Yeah,
The B stands
MBZ,
for.
Mohammed bin Zayed. Yeah.
Bin Zayed. Well, that's it. I couldn't remember a lot. I'm horrible with names. He let out that guy let out that, yeah, we're going to grab the islands back from Iran with the Americans. Oh, so Karg Island's not the target. It's going to be, of course, the target's going to be the islands in Straits of Hormuz, which is just going to be drone hunting targets for anybody that lands on those islands. I feel sorry for these guys because they're just going to be sent into a meat grinder for nothing. As for the Epstein elites, so they can rape and murder and eat some more children. And apparently UAE has decided to stop existing because I'm pretty sure once they're fully in this conflict, Iran is just going to level them. And if you take out the water desalination plants, I mean, look, the trilaterate territories that were the 7 sheikdoms that became the UAE until 80 years ago, or less than 80 years ago, really, for the audience that doesn't know that, these entities were nothing more than a small mud brick fort and a small village with a port. That's all there ever was. They were very small. The majority of the Arab population in that area were Bedouins, were nomads, and these small villages with a small warlord sitting there that then became these modern giant cities that cannot feed themselves. One, they don't grow food, very limited anything they grow, and two, there's no fresh water. There's not enough fresh water there's barely enough fresh water for the villages that were there. And now those villages of a few hundred, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people have grown up into cities of 4 or 5 million. You cut off the desalination plants and you'll have mass casualties within a day to 2 days of people dying from thirst in a 45, 50 degree environment. And if they enter this war, realistically speaking, I think the future of the UAE is going to be post-apocalyptic, half-desert buried cities that, they'll have tours to see, something out of Mad Max, the Road Warrior, or Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and that level area, because those they're not capable of surviving without having these technologies. And if they go into a full war with Iran, of course, all that infrastructure is going to become a target. Instantly, it's going to become a target. So those entities, I think, are going to die out as political entities. But they seem to be hell-bent on it for whatever reason. I don't know, you can't fix stupid.
They attacked, Stas, yesterday they attacked 2 water facilities in Iran. But so far from what we've seen, Iran didn't attack desalination plants, didn't attack any sort of, water reservoir when it comes to the Arab states together with Israel. It seems that there is still, as the commander, the head of, Iranian army said, they're keeping their eyes, their focus on logistics, on radars, and forces, American and Israeli forces. And I don't know how long they want to continue with this sort of concept, because right now, as we talk, they attack, power grids in Tehran, for example. Some part of Tehran, they attack the power grid, and they attack universities as well. And what is your understanding about the way that Iran is not going after these facilities, instead that they're attacking, strategic targets?
Well, Iran yesterday issued a warning for all American and Israeli universities in these other countries, which they issued as a humanitarian warning: leave, because we're going to destroy them. As I said, stay a kilometer away from them to save your own students' lives. So they're going to go tit for tat and then some, because they're always, if 2 Iranian steel plants got hit, Iran hit 6 plants in return. They're escalating higher on that, but they're doing it with warnings: leave, as opposed to the Americans or Israelis that are just hitting plants and hoping to kill as many people as possible. Iran's giving them the warnings, get out before we blow it up. If you stay there, it's your own problem. But I think Iran has gone after a lot of the oil and gas infrastructure back for revenge from its infrastructure being hit. They have not hit the desalination plants. There's one Iranian desalination plant that got hit on Karg Island, where the Americans supposedly want to land. That's right. You don't have enough water there anyway, so let's destroy the water plant. Yeah. Just like they bombed the airstrip, now they can't land on that airstrip if they need to land on the airstrip. So lots of intelligent planning right there. But if they go after those desalination plants, any country that goes into a full war with Iran is going to cease to exist. And I think the UAE is going to be that first case, the case in point for everybody else. Bahrain, it looks like it's questionable whether the king is still there because the revolution there is only growing in power. They just recently killed one of the Shia leaders of, or I don't know, activists that's tortured him to death. There was videos of his body, photographs of his body. I mean, that's in his 20s or something. They just tore him up. So that was. I mean, it's stupid. It's heavy-handed and stupid because when your population's 80% Shia and they're already in revolt, doing that just kind of pisses them off even more. So you're guaranteed to have a revolution in the government. But countries like Qatar, areas, the damage. I'll tell you, the damage in Qatar, from my oil and gas supply chain background in Halliburton and Cameron, and then from I was a supply chain director on construction projects for Technomont. So we're expanding part of the Moscow oil refinery to make E85 petro, and we were building one of the 3 phases of the giant Gazprom Neft LNG plant in Amur. So I know how long it takes for the metal construction. I know how long it takes for these vessels. Some of these vessels can be up to 78, 80 meters long, all hand manufactured. Not to mention logistics and logistic nightmares when you're moving things that big. I know how long it takes to do all this. And looking at and then how long if the wellheads are damaged, to replace the wellheads, and if the wells are damaged, what you can do with the wells, or if you have to re-drill totally new wells, the time frames involved. And from the pictures I've seen from the hits on the Qatari LNG plants, you're looking at 1.5 to 2 years. They're going to be down. And if the LNG plants are down for that long, and if it's wellheads, it may be longer. And as this goes on, it could be much more damage. It could be 5 to 7, 8 years down to get everything rebuilt. And then you're looking at that. What normally you get ammonia out of the gas. Use gas to manufacture fertilizer. And until those gas facilities are up and running, there's things like drying gas, cleaning it, drying it, because you've got drying it from water vapor, cleaning it from all the sand and other gases that are involved, which ammonia happens to be one of them. You're not, and until all that's up, you're not going to be getting any fertilizer out of it either. So you're looking at 30% of the chemical fertilizer being gone off the market for 3, 4, 5 years. Never mind the LNG. That could be at least 1.5 to 2 years at present. It may be much worse before this conflict is over. The disaster level for that's already created, and for European economies, non-Russian European economies, obviously, and other places, is huge. But again, Iran has hit strategically, and it's parallel. In parallel, it is still destroying the U.S. bases. So it still has that much capacity, no matter what the Americans are saying. And it's hitting Israel very, very hard. Very large parts of Tel Aviv now look like Gaza. Talk about karma. So, yeah, they've got huge problems. And Iran has not given up the ghost. It's fighting. It's fighting hard. It's taking up casualties. Though it's not one-sided. But most of the casualties Iran's not taking is civilians being murdered. Because the U.S. military and Israel can't find the military targets, so they go after civilians, as they do every single time.
What do you make of what has happened to Gerald Ford aircraft carrier? Because there were a lot of rumors about, they said it was a laundry room, the fire, somehow was the main problem in those areas. But for an aircraft the size of Gerald Ford, it's huge. How can someone imagine that was the problem? It seems that the reports show that the problem is much deeper than that. And what do you make of it?
Look, there's two issues here. First of all, it's the toilets, and the second one is the fire. I interviewed Cameron McGregor. I'm not going into who's related, who he's related to. People can figure it out on their own. And Cameron is former U.S. Navy officer. And I heard it from him, and I've heard it from several other people. Look, the toilets are soft mutiny, because the aircraft carrier has been out to sea for 11 months. The people are exhausted. Physically, they're exhausted. They're a lot of them are not trained enough, and I mean, they're physically just exhausted. I mean, imagine even at something the size of an aircraft carrier, you're out there for 11 months. That the soft mutiny in that when they want to go back, they'll start doing things. Sailors will start doing things like flushing down the toilet T-shirts, ropes, things like that, because that blocks up blocks up the filtration systems, and then they start to overflow. I mean, 80% of toilets overflow. That's a pretty big thing on something the size of the size of the Gerald Ford. The fire, and I talked to him. He's like, "Have you ever heard?" First of all, to understand, this ship has thousands of compartments that are watertight, so they're airtight. They can be closed off so the ship doesn't sink, right? It's very hard to sink an aircraft carrier, just for no other reason, just for that. 30 hours to put out a fire in a laundromat. And I asked Cameron, have you ever heard of something like that? He's like, no, I've never heard of anything like that. That's not realistic. More than likely what happened is they got hit. And the hit, whatever missile or large drone that hit, created enough damage that it had a fire incident that took 30 hours to put out. It's hard to believe that it was just some kind of one compartment that could have been closed off. Even if it was spread for 30 hours, they were putting the fire out.